Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Today, our guest is Jeanne Corcoran, Director of the Sarasota County Film and Entertainment Office. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, Jeanne.
Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate it.
How did you get started in the industry?
Well, it was all my mother's fault, or either she gets all the blame or she gets all the praise. But when I was about 3 years old, she decided to make me into a child performer and push me out on stage singing and dancing. And then I was in TV commercials, and I did child modeling for a couple of fashion stores up on the East Coast. And then I was doing bit parts in plays and then doing bit parts in commercials, and just stayed with the industry as a performer, grew with it as I got older, live theater, and then into television commercials, and then from that went into film work. It was just a natural progression of using my abilities in front of the camera or in front of the microphone. And then in the 80s, probably the late 80s, I had always been writing from the time I was a little kid. I was always a writer, and decided that when I went to school, when I went to college, I would take creative writing, I would take broadcast journalism, maybe I would be a newswoman, maybe I would be a novelist. I wasn't sure, but I knew writing was going to be a big part, and creativity, creative outlets were going to be a big part of my career, whatever it ended up being. And the writing led me to script writing. Sold my first screenplay probably in, I want to say, 87 or thereabouts. And spent basically from 1986 to 1997, I was a writer and a producer and a creative director for television projects and independent film projects and commercials and everything else included in that realm. And about 97, decided I wanted to find a way to use my abilities and my skills without working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and switched over into government. Had the opportunity in 1997 to go to work for the state of Nevada. I was living in Las Vegas, working as a writer, producer, and a creative director in film and TV. And the state of Nevada had an opportunity, and I enjoyed meeting their film commissioner for the whole state, and he hired me as his production coordinator for the whole state, his production manager. And I've been a film commissioner ever since 1997. Although I have to tell you, I still write, I still do things creatively in my free time. I've written a couple of novels. I continue to do a lot of creative things on my own when I have, quote, spare time, unquote. So that's how I got into the industry and how I got to be where I am today.
So how did you find your way from the Nevada Film Commission over to Sarasota County, Florida?
Well, I had been in Nevada. I had been in Las Vegas for 15 years. And for about the last 3 years of that, Nevada had a wage freeze on. State government was not giving raises. And that just wasn't, I was too young to be done. And my superior, our film commissioner for the state, basically said, sorry, that's the way it is. You might have to look around. So I walked back to my desk, and 20 minutes later, after talking to the Association of Film Commissioners International, I found out that there were 3 openings in the USA looking for a film commissioner. One was North Carolina, one was South Carolina, and the last one, as was explained to me by AFCI, was this lovely artistic community. It wasn't a state job, it was a county job, but it was in such a pretty place, and I said, please, just, cut to the chase, where is it? And she said it was Sarasota, Florida, and I laughed and said, do you know I'm from Sarasota originally? So it was kismet. And I sent out a package that afternoon to North Carolina, South Carolina, and to Sarasota. And South Carolina was the first to respond the next morning after they got it by FedEx. And they didn't have the budget that I needed to make a move across country. And then North Carolina responded, and I was in their top 5 candidates, but they weren't going to make a decision for about 180 days because their existing film commissioner hadn't retired yet. And then Sarasota called. They were the third one to call of the 3, and they said, hey, we'd like to fly you down and interview you in a week or 10 days. And it happened very quickly. I went down the end of the year in 2006 and interviewed, and they made me the job offer, and I came back to Nevada, gave my notice, and started in Sarasota February of 2007, where I had the fortunate opportunity to set up this film commission from scratch. So I was really just so fortunate to be able to come here and set it up the way I wanted it to be set up from the very beginning, from the outset in 2007, And it's been wonderful. I've been here 11 years, and community's terrific, and our production resources, our post-production resources, and everything surrounding it has been supportive of this office and proactive, and great attitudes, great positive momentum here. So that's how I got to Sarasota.
Let's talk about, those first days when you got to Sarasota. When you started on your first day, do you recall what was the 60-day goal? What did you want to get done right out of the box? And then going further than that, what were your kind of long-term goals that you kind of knew, okay, this is going to take a little bit more time to evolve, but this is important and I don't want to lose my eye on this one?
Well, to back it up just a little to the interview process, when I came in to be interviewed, it was the most interesting interview I've ever been on. In the morning of the day of my interview, 9 people interviewed me. 9 different individual people interviewed me. And in the afternoon of the interview day, 11 people sat around a large conference table and interviewed me. And this went on all day long, basically. And at the end of my interview that afternoon, the last person at the table said, well, how long of a learning curve will you need to understand Sarasota County? How much time will you need to get up to speed to really understand Sarasota County and be productive? And I looked at them. I looked at my watch, and I said, about 15 minutes. Do you know I'm from here originally? And they had no idea. So it was actually pretty humorous at the time. I said, I grew up here. I went to school here. I went to college here in Florida and moved away to Las Vegas, Nevada. And if I came back, seriously, I have no learning curve other than finding out about new construction and buildings that might not have been here when I left. My family was here. I had my dad, and I had a couple of sisters in the area. So when I took the job and started in February, I knew the community very well. What I needed to do, my first goal, was to integrate the production community specifically in what I hope to do. So my first outreach was to the production community at large. Sarasota County had a lady that had been working as their film commissioner for, I think, about 12 years, but she was also the full-time bookkeeper for the tourism division of Sarasota, and her ability to be the film commissioner and to work in that capacity was really reactive because she had a full-time job as a bookkeeper. Did a great job. If I ever meet her face-to-face, I'd love to shake her hand because I can admire anybody that can work a full-time job 40 hours a week doing one position and then also cover as needed the position of a film commissioner reactively when things show up and things need time and attention. So when I got here, the years that lady had put in as a part-time film commissioner did provide me with information about who in the community was involved in production, who were the cinematographers, who were the videographers, who here was a grip and a gaffer, and so forth. So I became familiar with the production community as quickly as I could. The EDC, Economic Development Corporation, that hired me for the county, they had a reception shortly after I arrived. I think it was probably within 2 weeks. And the entire production community at large was invited. The legislative and elected community was invited. The community and civic leaders were invited. So it was wonderful to kick off this new film office initiative by meeting the key players. I think that's the most important thing a new film commission needs to do: integrate the community, integrate the resources, integrate the professionals, and let them know you're here to serve them. You know, a film commission is not some kind of glamorous, hoity-toity, hoi-polloi organization that rubs elbows with movie stars. That's not what we are, and it is a common misconception among people when they hear, oh, it's a film commission. Oh, you work with movies and movie stars. John, you know as well as anybody, I'm preaching to the choir telling you, but to the people listening, they may or may not know that we are a service organization. Film commissions are meant to serve their community. And if they're not service-minded, if they're not service-oriented, then they're not going to succeed, because we don't come in to have parties or schmooze movie stars or hang out on sets and eat off the catering truck. It's not what we do. We're supposed to be the nuts and bolts people on the ground, solving the problems, finding the resources, integrating the government, integrating the private sector, getting access for projects while still ensuring that our communities are safe and protected and unharmed by projects coming in. So, my first step was to make that connection to the community. And it was very gratifying, very rewarding. Everyone was very welcoming. We formed the basics of the construction of the film office, the nuts and bolts of how I'm going to administrate it, what kind of tools, what kind of technology did I need. Obviously, I needed, at this point, 11 years ago, I needed a brand new website. I needed communication tools. I needed computers. I needed to know what's my budget for collateral materials. How do you get the word out? What am I going to do electronically? What am I going to do in print? Am I going to have postcards? Am I going to do mass mailings? Am I going to do email mass mailings? What is my strategy for marketing this new film commission and getting it known not only to all of our local resources, our regional resources, our statewide resources in Florida, but reaching beyond our state? How do you get known to the industry? In that, I was really so fortunate because after 10 years with the State of Nevada Film Commission, headquartered in Las Vegas as their statewide production manager, I had worked with 8,000 projects in 10 years because the average project number that we served every year in Las Vegas for the entire state was about 800, 850 projects a year. And that represented direct spending into the local economy of the state of Nevada. The direct spending was around, $160 to $200 million. And when you look at that from an economic development standpoint, you add in the industry-approved multipliers of $200 million of direct spending, really ends up being closer to $400 million in economic impact. So I came here well-equipped from a really big market of hundreds of millions of dollars of production a year to a small, intimate market that needed to be developed from the ground up. And our first year here, I think we did about $1 million worth of production. And it has grown steadily every year since. If you could see a bar chart or a graph of how we started out in 2007 to where we were in 2017, a 10-year period, which our fiscal year goes October to October, so our fiscal year 2017, it's straight up. I mean, it just keeps going all the way up, grows and grows and grows until the state of Florida no longer had tax credits left in their incentive program. And you see a definite leveling off once that tool was no longer in play. So again, my early steps for this film commission were integrating the community, identifying all the resources, setting out all the tools and technology from collateral materials to computers to everything else, and then outreach to our target market as quickly as possible. And I reconnected at that point with dozens, if not hundreds, of key people I had worked with in Las Vegas. I had a database that I brought with me of producers and location managers and production coordinators and writers and production designers and all the key people that make the work on the ground happen. Again, not movie stars, not celebrities, because that's not what the film commission has to focus on. We have to focus on the people that make the decisions about where will the project shoot and why. The ones that are the UPMs, the unit production managers, the line producers, the ones that are doing the budgets, the location managers that are gathering up the location information with photography and otherwise and getting it in the hands of the producers, and the producers who make the budgetary decisions about where they can afford to shoot and where are the most incentives. The nuts and bolts of integrating Sarasota County into the industry as I knew it was a key role for me, a key responsibility for me. So that first 6 months was a whirlwind of letting everyone I knew in the industry know about Sarasota County. We overcame that, and Sarasota County is now pretty well known in film and television and the other industry. We're pretty competitive for being a small boutique region, being a county rather than a whole state. And Film Florida, gets lots and lots of kudos. Film Florida, as a statewide organization, immediately took me into its welcoming arms, and I became good friends with all the other film commissioners that are active in the state. And it's just a very supportive organization that I can't tell you how grateful I am to know and to be a part of. So that was another big part of forming a new film commission from scratch, becoming a part of our statewide trade organization with Film Florida. So I don't know if I left anything out. We did a lot of new innovative things here. I created quarterly mixers where we could network together. I was bringing in speakers from the industry, people that I knew personally that were willing to come take a look at Sarasota County. And we still do that 3 or 4 times a year. We have mixer networking events where we bring in speakers that at the end of the mixer and the networking event sit on a panel, we have a Q&A, and I have brought in Emmy Award-winning television directors and producers from New York, and I've brought in producers and writers and directors and production company owners from New York, from California, from a lot of other places. And it's twofold purpose. Not only do we educate our own community and integrate them into knowing real professionals that really get high-end work done, but we also bring those leaders and key decision makers into Sarasota County to say, hey, come take a look at this place you've never been. And we formed a lot of great relationships over the last 11 years. And we've served in the 11 years about 3,000 projects or more. So we've been busy bees.
Earlier, you had mentioned AFCI, and
right.
In addition to being with Film Florida, you're heavily involved with them. They are the Association of Film Commissioners International. Tell us a little bit about that organization and your involvement with them.
Sure. I joined AFCI in 1997, so I've been a member of AFCI for 21 years, as long as I've been a film commissioner. When I started with the Nevada Film Office in Las Vegas, the first thing we did was put me into their educational program, and even though I was a very experienced writer, producer, creative director on the other side of government and had used the services of film commissions, I had never been a part of a film commission. So I wanted to learn everything I could from the ground up about how film commissions function globally, as well as nationally in the USA, as well as regionally on the West Coast. And really the only way you could learn from the ground up the nuts and bolts of what film commissions are and how film commissions are put together was through the Association of Film Commissioners International. When I joined them in 1997, there were, I think, 350 film commission members from around the world. And the thing about AFCI, it's just what it says it is. It's an association of film commissioners. It is also a trade organization, and now, 21 years later, it also integrates studio members and production company members and location manager members and a lot of other peripheral and ancillary and target market clients of film commissioners into the organization. But back then, 21 years ago, it was intensively focused on just film commissioner members and their education to make them professional and to give us globally a consistent ability to perform, a consistent knowledge, a consistent set of principles that film commissions around the world could adhere to. And if people did not want to adhere to those standards and those normalcies of global film commission practices, then they couldn't be a member. And the good news was that those standards and those practices were what the industry wanted, identified by the industry itself. This is what we want from film commissions. So not only were we being educated by the AFCI, but we were being integrated into at that time, the studio system, primarily television studios as well as film studios, to do it the way they wanted us to do it. Not the way we wanted to or guessed or felt like doing, but meeting their needs more specifically. And that's what AFCI still does to this day. They focus on understanding the industry, not only in the USA, but internationally, and what that industry demands in order to come to our regions, because they're our target market. If we can't appeal to film and television, all other kinds of media production to come to us by doing what it is they need and what they want, as opposed to what we might run around tangentially thinking they might want, we won't get the business we need. So I joined AFCI and have stayed with it all these years, even though I received my AFCI certification a long time ago, back when they used to do master certifications. They continue to grow, they continue to change, and they continue to adapt to the world of film, television, and other media production globally. And as you know, and anyone that's a member of Film Florida knows, it has changed incredibly fast over the last decade. We have seen, monumental changes. And I just want to say, from a comparison of, let's say, AFCI to Film Florida is in its own way a miniature AFCI because it's focused just on the state of Florida membership. And Film Florida is a powerful tool for every film professional and every film commission in our state. They need to be a part of it. And they also need to look at AFCI because it takes them to a global platform. And the two organizations are very complementary, and yet they're each unique as to their own merit. So I'll probably always stay with AFCI, but I will definitely always stay with Film Florida as long as I'm part of Florida Film Commission structures like I am today.
Jeanne, Sarasota County has some great production resources, highlighted, of course, by Film Florida member Ringling College of Art and Design. Take a minute to talk about the relationship you have with Ringling and the overall benefit of having them in your backyard.
Well, Ringling College has been a primary supporter of this film commission from inception. When I came here in 2007, one of the first relationships I had with Ringling College is they provided me, free of charge, a small teacher's house on campus in which to stay until my home out west was sold. Because when I came here, I still had a home in Las Vegas to sell, and my husband stayed behind in Las Vegas to get it sold, and it took, 7 or 8 months to get that off the market. So Ringling College from the very beginning was a great patron saint to our film commission. They stepped in, they provided me housing, they provided great support and enthusiasm for having a professional, full-time film commission in place here. And within a year after I arrived, they brought on Bad Battersby. I think it was it might have been 2 years. It might have been 2009. They brought in Bad Battersby to head up the new digital filmmaking initiative over at Ringling College, and they were ready to take their step into the future of independent filmmaking, digital filmmaking, new tools, new technology. And we've always, as a film commission, had a very close relationship with Ringling College. They've watched us grow, they've helped us grow, and we in turn have done the same for them in any way possible. We've brought in speakers, we've brought in subjects, and had events at Ringling College from the outset of this film commission all the way back to 2007, and they have hosted amazing people. I mean, we brought in early on the executive producer of all of the Batman movies, for example. Michael Uslan came in. He was one of our early guests because he's a good friend of our film office. And we brought in people that had never been here, and it helped our community understand, and it helped Ringling College get a quick grip on bringing in the best of the best to get to know our community, as well as help our community learn more about what the best of the best want and how they do it. And Ringling College grabbed the bull by the horns. They really built up their digital filmmaking major. Brad has done an amazing job with those students. He was voted Mentor of the Year, Film School Mentor of the Year, the best professor in film schools anywhere by Variety, I believe it was. That's an incredible honor. That's putting Ringling's digital filmmaking mentorship and professorship by him up against all the film schools. So Ringling has really, blazed a lot of trails. They created their digital filmmaking lab. A few years later, they got on track to want to build sound stages, and that has been a long, expensive process for them that they have never wavered from that commitment. When they started with the concept to put in sound stages and studio development and post-production, they set out to raise the funding, build the buildings, and bring in, the newest and the best technology. So Ringling College has just been a juggernaut in terms of moving forward and making the commitment to investing whatever they had to invest for infrastructure and technology, as well as developing the students and the education and the major of digital filmmaking. Their student interns are amazing. Their digital filmmaking lab continues to bring in wonderful people. They have really picked up the gauntlet of bringing in stars and celebrities and directors and producers, far surpassing what I can afford to do. So they supplement my efforts tremendously. They are an amazing resource and an amazing, consistent contributor to growing film and television and other technology here in Sarasota County. I couldn't do it without them, that's absolutely for sure.
And we love having them as a member of Film Florida, too. They add a lot, both locally as well as statewide, to the entire organization.
Their students, as they graduate, many of them have become filmmakers and created content. Some have stayed here, but most go away to the Mecca. Most of the Ringling grads in digital filmmaking, they do go. They leave and they go to Los Angeles, they go to New York, they go to Chicago. But many of them are returning now, watching the 11-year curve of Ringling's maturation through the process of building filmmakers. It's interesting to see some of them coming back and becoming hometown heroes, hometown auteurs, and we hope to see that continue to grow as well.
From your perspective as a film commissioner, how has the industry changed over the last couple of years, and what is your office doing to evolve with those changes?
One of the major changes started almost immediately after we had laid the foundation for this film commission in 2007. we were seeing already in 2007 the transition from traditional film to high-definition video, to digital tools. And what that meant to the rank and file in the production world was costs of equipment were coming down. You could buy cameras much more affordably. You could buy equipment much more affordably. And you could produce quality content of a much higher caliber on digital mediums, digital filmmaking, than you ever could in the past. It used to be that if you couldn't shoot on film, it was very amateurish and it looked like something that only television would air, and it was lowbrow quality, and it couldn't be, wouldn't go through multiple generations of duplication without losing all of its quality. But digital, high def, and so forth really has grown exponentially. That was the biggest thing that started to happen in the mid-2000s. And by 2007, when I was here, it was a force to be reckoned with. And now, 11 years later, much less is shot on film, much more is shot on digital mediums. And although I truly believe film will always exist because it is a legacy format that really looks uniquely like nothing else, as good as digital gets, and it is wonderful, film still has a certain quality, it has a certain grain, it has a certain color saturation and a depth of field that even digital video hasn't accomplished yet. So I think film is here to stay. It's just reduced in size tremendously over what it used to be. So film to digital was the first big thing that was happening. And then the tools, the equipment was changing so rapidly. Instead of cameras that, back when I was in Las Vegas, for example, even then our video cameras, our digital video cameras, our high-def video cameras, they cost $25,000, $35,000 a piece. Well, nowadays, you can get a really fine camera. You can get a 4K camera. You can hold it in your hand, and you can get it for far, far less, a fraction of what they used to cost. So the cost of equipment has tremendously dropped, while the quality of equipment has ratcheted up much higher than it used to be. And what this has done, this is what I like to refer to as the democratization of distribution. It has enabled filmmakers, television content creators, video content creators, online web content creators, all of these new opportunities for distribution of content. It has democratized the ability to get your stuff out there. You can put it up yourself now. You don't necessarily always have to go through a third-party distribution system that is expensive and eats away at your profits. That is still necessary, of course. The bigger the project, the bigger the need for the bigger distribution. But independent projects, independent filmmaking, independent video content programming has never been more accessible to the individual company or the individual creator than it is now. And that's continuing. There have never been so many outlets, YouTube and Google and Hulu and Netflix and what they refer to as the OTTs, all of these new technologies. OTT used to mean over the transom, which meant you'd throw your work over the transom into an agent, or you'd throw it over the transom, the upper glass transom over the door. People would throw it in unsolicited. It was sort of the significance of doing guerrilla self-marketing to go OTT, to go over the transom. Well, now it means other methods of outlets, such as beyond cable. There's Netflix and there's Hulu and there's online and there's YouTube and there's Google and there's Amazon and all of these different things. So what started out as a format revolution back in the mid-2000s, in the first decade, had transformed into an equipment revolution, and then it transformed into an affordability revolution, and then it transformed into a freedom of distribution, giving the individuals more ability to get their own content where they want to put it. And it has happened incredibly fast. And also a big factor that's come into play, I think, over this last decade has been CGI, of course. I mean, we were doing computer graphics and we were doing special effects and things like that, back in the 80s. It's not that it never existed. Take a look at the original Batman, for example, in 1989. There was CGI, there were some special effects, and it was the beginning of the superhero franchise. Another subject for another day. But what has happened nowadays with computer-generated imagery is phenomenal, and virtual reality and 3D production. 2D production is even amazingly superior to what it was just a matter of a few years ago. And the creation of computer-generated characters and computer-generated actors. Take a look at Avatar. Who would have thought before Avatar came along that they could ever have computer-generated characters that were so real and so believable that it just sucked the audience into this completely new world where they believed what they were seeing were real performers, were real actors, that they weren't computer-generated, because they're not cartoons anymore. They're not animated, unreal, make-believe. The reality of what CGI has become, the reality of what filmmaking has become is startlingly good. So that's where we are, right now with virtual reality and spherical filming, 3D filming, things like that. They are still finding their way. Virtual reality, wearing big goggles, is gradually slimming down to where you can wear something as thin as a pair of glasses. So we're watching that technology. We get involved with that locally here in Sarasota County, probably because of Ringling College, but also because of the natural progression of availability of these tools to the commercial market for production. In fact, right now I'm working with a project. I can't talk too much about it because it's confidential in nature, but it is going to crack open a whole new walnut about virtual reality, augmented reality, and consumable, hands-on, everyday people having access to that. And if it comes to pass, it's about a $15 million initiative, and it'll be remarkable, and it will start here in Sarasota County. Again, these are one of those long-term things that we're going to watch it roll out. We're going to help it roll out and hope it comes to fruition. So, let's talk about this in another year or two and see where we're at. But Ringling College, speaking of new technology, Ringling College recently received a $15 million endowment, most of which will go towards virtual reality as a major. We're going to be the first place in the United States and perhaps worldwide to have a VR degree specifically in a master program, a master degree program.
Whether it is your time in Sarasota or maybe even go back to Nevada, this is story time here. Talk about, a project or two that have been kind of the most memorable that you have or you've been involved in, and why.
Well, going back in time, going back to pre-Sarasota, it would be hard to find one that was my favorite. I loved working with some of the major projects that came through when Ocean's 11 went into the remake mode way back when. We had Ocean's 11, 12, and 13 that shot in Las Vegas. We had the number of the Rocky movies that shot in Las Vegas. And probably one of my favorites, Miss Congeniality 2, working with people like Sandra Bullock. She was producing her own film with her own company. Those were memorable, amazing projects with top-of-the-line people, top-of-the-line crews. And they were exciting times. There were films that our office assisted extensively, like 3,000 Miles to Graceland, which had Kevin Costner and just a whole lot of other great people in it, that was fraught with problems, all kinds of special effects problems and stunt problems. And they were big challenges that we all got through. My time in Las Vegas, what I remember most about it were big challenges. How do you blow up a building? How do you, crash a plane into a casino? How do you set fire and burn down an entire gas station in the middle of the wilds of Nevada? All kinds of big things, big challenges. And they were all overcome, and they were all overcome well. But it was exciting. It was stressful. Some of them were monumental problems to overcome, but they all got done in the end. They all got made. Maybe my favorite things were not the biggest projects. Maybe some of them were the smaller, more intimate projects when we would have things like X-Files and television programs would come into Las Vegas. And they were smaller in scale and smaller in scope, but in a way they reached a bigger audience because TV series stay on for a long, 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 long time, where a movie comes and goes quickly in a community when they're shooting on location, and then it comes and goes quickly in the theaters, and it may or may not become something that people see for the next 20 or 30 years, whereas television has a more long-lasting or far-reaching shelf life. we're seeing, I mean, there are places right now in the world where Miami Vice is still being seen in reruns. That's a perfect example of where a TV program can be 30 years old and it's still being seen and it's still promoting the locations that are seen in the TV show. So television programs were always a big favorite of mine. I always liked those. We had Nash Bridges and we had, you name it, we had it from, and the original CSI started in Las Vegas. So many TV series were very, very memorable and very enjoyable. And I got to meet some of my favorite long-term friends in the industry, long-term location managers. I'm thinking of one in particular, Ilk Jones, who's been voted the best location manager in the world. Ilk Jones was on X-Files when I first met him, and then he went on to be with Chris Nolan and be in, giant movies and Transformers and Batman and all the other things out there. A lot of great friendships came from those projects, and many of the great friendships with location managers and producers and writers and UPMs and line producers started out when they were with smaller projects, when they were with television. And some of them were even with commercials that went on to become directors of major films. A lot of memories there in Las Vegas, and a lot of crazy things, too, with film. If you can learn early on to deal with the disasters, it will equip you for all the small challenges. We had big disasters. We had a gas station blow up out in the boondocks in Nevada, and fire trucks putting it out and so forth. We had cast members in big things have a gag go wrong with a stunt and have a piece of shrapnel go through their leg. Things go wrong. And film commissioners in particular have to be jacks of all trades, Jacks and Jills of all trades. We have to be jugglers. We have to be prepared to step in and help find solutions and help calm down situations and help solve the problems. There's a great balancing act required of film commissioners. We have to first and foremost serve our community. The protection of our community and our resources, our people, we have to make sure our locations don't get abused and that our people don't get misused. That's our first and foremost obligation. That's why we're hired, to take care of our community. And then second, we have to take care of the productions themselves and make sure they get what they need, that they're happy, that they have a good production experience, because we want them to come back. And we want them to come back time and time again. So we have to also meet the needs and the obligations and requirements of government. And government is its own creature. Government is its own entity. And government criteria isn't always remotely similar to private sector criteria. So you do a juggling act as a film commission there as well. And in Sarasota, thinking about in the last 11 years, some of the best experiences we've had here have been surprising ones you might not think of. When MTV came to town, there was a lot of hell and fury about, was it going to be harmful to the community? Were we going to be swamped at spring break with, thousands and thousands and thousands of young people partying down? And we had to calm the community and say, let it be what it's going to be. Give it a chance. Don't judge it in advance. And let's see what they do for the community. Let's see how this project, this TV series, actually performs. And let's take a look, give them a chance to perform before we start judging them about whether it's going to be harsh on the community. And as it turned out, as they finished, 4 completely different sets of shooting here for 2 full seasons of television, they've spent millions and millions of dollars in the community directly. The TV series, whether you like it or love it, is very successful for MTV at this point. Their crews have been very professional. The actors have benefited. The locals have benefited. So in the end, you have to give production a chance. You can't judge one by the behavior of another. There have just been a lot of great experiences here, and I'm happy to say very few misadventures. We've had very few projects that have gone off the rails or had any kind of serious problem that had to be mitigated. We've had stunts. We've had cars flying off bridges. We've had boats blowing up. Sarasota County, for being a small boutique region in terms of square miles and size, we've had a lot of projects in the last 11 years, and we've had, knock on wood, very few misadventures or mishaps. And even those, whatever they might have been, were ironed out, solved, resolved, and completed to the satisfaction of the community at large.
Jeanne, a lot of times we get questions from either industry professionals or even residents. They want to know how they can get involved. Obviously, from an industry professional standpoint, they want to know how to get on jobs, how to get on crew lists, those type of things. But then there's the great number of residents of the state that want to get involved in our industry, want to help more, want to see us grow. What advice do you have to both of those groups in your community?
Well, to our production community first, to our resources and our assets and our skilled people, from pre-production, from scouting, from development, from concept creation, all of those people are so important. It's not just when the production hits the ground and rolls tape or rolls film or hits the go button on the camera. It's not just that. It's all the people ahead of that. It's all the development people, and it's all the parts of the puzzle. There are a lot of parts to the puzzle. So I would really encourage our community at large to be involved with our film office. We don't cost anybody anything. We're a free service. Let us know you're out there. Reach out to us. Get on our online production directory database. Let us be able to find you when we need you, because we get hundreds and hundreds of projects calling us every year for all kinds of needs. So be available. Let us know where you are. Keep your information current. Get your information on file and online with us so that you're part of our team and you're part of our community resources. So to all of our locals, I would say, use the tools that are here. Be aware of them, and be aware that film commissions, generally speaking, cost you nothing and are there to help promote what you're able to do, what you're able to offer, your goods, your services, your skills. So get involved with your film commission. Take advantage of what they have to offer. Get to know the tools available to you and maximize them. And also get to know how to use self-promotional tools to grow your own marketing and your own awareness and your own credibility with your target market. Do podcasts, do blogs, find yourself a YouTube channel, find yourself a Google channel, and put up demo videos and put up samples of your work and put up a little talking head video of yourself explaining what your company does or what you individually do as a contractor. Self-promotion is huge, and we can help guide you, but in the end, you're an individual entrepreneur, you're an individual business. You have to maximize your own ability to self-market. So I would say that to my regional people. Use us the best you can. We'll try and help you any way we can, understand what we can do for you, and then also understand and let us help you better your self-marketing skills and your self-promotional skills and how to get your name out there and reach your target market. Now, for the community at large, for the public, I think most people don't realize how they couldn't be involved, how useful they are, what kind of resources they have to help film commissioners help the community. If you've got an interesting house, if you've got an interesting property, if you have a business, if you have a service, if you're a vendor, let us know about you. You may have a great application to some project that we end up having come into our sphere of influence. People with boats, we're great. We need to know about you. People with horses, we need to know about you. People with animals, people with interesting children, people who perform, people who know talented individuals, people who compose music. If you are a seamstress, you could work on costuming. If you know hair and makeup, you could do that. If you are a hobbyist who likes to build things, you could work with set design. If you're out there in the general public, there may be some affiliated skill or knowledge or asset or resource that you have that we would really benefit from knowing about. So let us know about you. And sometimes it's as simple as, gosh, I own an interesting house that has a jungle-like backyard. That could be a location. Or I've got this old shack of a house that we're getting ready to tear down. That could be an opportunity for filming. Maybe a film production company would pay you to demolish something you need demolished, because demolition is a big part of a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows. If you're going to be doing something unusual, you're going to have a 50th anniversary mud track put in for your tractor company, let us know. That could be a filming opportunity. If you've got an unusual life, if you've got an unusual business history, if you're a colorful person with a big personality, let us know about you. You might be a subject of a reality TV show. We're pretty inventive, and we're pretty good at analyzing where people might fit into our big puzzle. It's a big jigsaw puzzle with a lot of pieces to make film and television and web and online and all of the other media. We work with commercials. We work with music videos, documentaries, student films. We work with infomercials and corporate videos. We work with all kinds of forms of media creation, even print, even radio. Our film commission is really an omni-media commission. We work with this enormous omni-media wheel of media. And it can probably help you in some capacity, or if you're in the sound of my voice, it can probably involve you in some capacity. So check it out and let us make you more a part of what we do, because the success of the film office translates into the success of the community economically, with jobs, with revenue, with tourism, with economic diversification, and great jobs. As you know, John, and everyone in Film Florida knows as a member, our industry is really about jobs. If nothing else, it's about jobs and economic diversification. We're not about foo-foo glamour and rubbing elbows with movie stars. They call it show business because it's a business. They don't call it show play or show fun, but it's called show business for a reason. And we just want everyone to benefit from this business.
Jeanne, talk a little bit about your role locally, as well as what anybody listening can do in terms of building relationships with their local officials and legislators to make sure that those folks understand our industry and therefore support what we're trying to accomplish here in the state.
It's a great question, John, and it's so important. As a film commission, we really need to help our local entities, our local municipalities, all of our elected officials. It's our job to help them understand what we do and why it matters. And that means reaching out one-on-one to elected officials, offering to come and bring them materials and give them charts and give them data and give them metrics about what we really accomplish, show them the facts, show them the figures. It also means that we as film commissioners need to make ourselves available to speak. We need to be speaking to public organizations and civic organizations. We need to be speaking to councils and committees, and we need to be speaking to chambers of commerce, boards of county commissioners, city commissioners. They need to know us in order to value what we're trying to do for them. And that takes elbow grease, and it takes time, and it also takes the ability to put your information in digestible form. Because when you meet with elected officials, when you meet with civic and community leaders, their time is so precious. They're not going to give you an hour. If you can get 15 minutes, if you can get 10 minutes, count yourself lucky and make it worthwhile. Make sure you come truly prepared with a leave-behind handout, with bullet points that says what you do, why you do it, and what you've accomplished, the dollars and cents and the numbers, because that's what elected officials in particular want to know. They want to know the hard facts and the metrics, because they have to answer to their constituents who elected them or put them in office or continue to renew their service to the community. So becoming familiarized with the local government, with the local decision makers, with the local civic and community leaders is essential to a film commission's success. And it has to be based on facts and metrics and accomplishments. It can't be based on just a lot of talk. You got to do the walk.
That's great information, Jeanne. Thanks for sharing that with everybody, because that goes whether it's locally in your area or any local area statewide.
Get involved with supporting the efforts of Film Florida and talking to our statewide senators and House of Representative members and other leaders, because, it starts at the top as to whether we get competitive incentives from the state, and if we can't get competitive incentives from the state, then we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps regionally and do our regional incentives and regional programs and regional rebates and things that help fill in those gaps. We all have to work together, and if the state is unable, for whatever reason, at any point in time, not to come back online with really competitive incentive programs, then we have to also step up regionally and individually as communities and put programs in place that will help keep us competitive on whatever level we can be competitive. The old story about, half a loaf is better than none. Well, let me tell you, in our business, a slice of bread is better than none. The crumbs off the table from a big project, they're better than nothing. We need to keep our business alive and our industry alive in this state, no matter what it takes.
Well said. So that'll do it for this episode of the Film Florida podcast. Thanks to Jeanne Corcoran for joining us, and thank you for listening. To learn more about the Sarasota County Film and Entertainment Office, go to filmsarasota.com. That's filmsarasota.com. And, of course, for more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org. And don't forget to check out our pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.